July 30th, 2008. On July 30th, 2008, I'm sitting around this little rundown apartment in Dallas, Texas, and I'm sitting on this little ratty old couch. And sitting right next to me on the couch that day is my meth dealer, this guy named Tex. Now, back in 2008, I'm not the clean-cut, polished-looking guy you see in front of you today, right? Best-selling books, family man, businessman, college professor, speaker all over the world. Back then, I'm a full-blown meth addict, and I'm the head of an organized crime ring that operates throughout the entire city of Dallas. I'm the top criminal in this criminal enterprise, the shot caller, the boss. So I'm on the couch that day with my dope dealer, Tex, and I'm telling Tex, we're passing this pipe back and forth. I'm like, Tex, man, you don't want to be here. The cops are closing in on me. The end is near. 10 days before this guy that I was doing all these burglaries with in Dallas, a guy named Dustin. Dustin was my partner in crime. He's my right-hand man. I mean, Dustin knew everything about our criminal enterprise, and Dustin is in the custody of the Dallas Police Department. They picked him up 10 days before. So they got my partner in crime in custody, which means it's only a matter of time before they're gonna have me in custody. Because here's the truth about crime, all crime. Everybody talks. Everybody talks. No one holds it down. And just as I pass that pipe back to Tex, the window on my right blows out and shatters. And then tumbling across that living room floor is a little canister going end over end, and it's smoking on one side. I've seen that movie before, and I know what this canister's about to do, right? I lock eyes with this thing, and I tried to get out of there as fast as I could, but it was too late. Boom! This flashbang grenade blows up in my face. Bright white light, loud noise, blows me back on the couch. And when I came to, when I can see and hear again, there's a cop standing over me in full SWAT riot gear. His boot is on my chest, the barrel of an assault rifle's digging in my eye socket. His finger is over the trigger, and he is screaming at the top of his lungs, "Don't move, don't move!" I looked at the barrel of that gun, and I was like, don't worry, you got me, man, it's over, it's done. And just about that time, the Dallas SWAT team was flooding in my apartment, and one of them screams out loud, "We got him. We got the Uptown Burglar." The Uptown Burglar. A name I'll live with for the rest of my life. Back then, about a dozen other meth addicts and myself, young and old, male and female, black and white, and everything in between, because drugs and addiction do not discriminate. But we indiscriminately and without reservation, we broke into the homes of dozens and dozens of people in the Uptown neighborhood of Dallas and beyond to feed our insatiable meth habits. But on July 30th, 2008, the Uptown burglary crime spree comes to an end because they've got their man. They've got the mastermind of the entire thing, zip-tied on the floor of a dirty old apartment. They took me to Dallas County Jail that day where they processed me in. Fingerprints, mugshot. They throw me in a holding cell and they set my bond at $1.4 million. Now, let me give you some context for a bond that size. There's 9,000 people in Dallas County Jail. This is one of the biggest jails in America. It's like a city when you walk inside Dallas County Jail. 9,000 residents live in there, inmates. No one else at the time, not murderers, not child molesters, not rapists, had bonds that high. And my crimes aren't like those crimes, man. My crimes are property crimes, meaning no one was ever home during these burglaries. I never saw my victims. They never saw me. No one was physically hurt. No weapons were ever used. These are property crimes around meth. But Dallas County is sending me a very clear signal with the bond. They're saying, you're not going to get out of this one, Damon West. We're going to take you to a very public trial, and we're going to make an example out of you. And boy, did they ever. My trial takes place 10 months after my arrest. Now, in this interim, when I'm in Dallas County Jail for 10 months waiting for this trial, I'm going through extreme withdrawals. I've been on dope for 4 years at this point. I'm coming down, and there's no detox program in Dallas County Jail. There's not some kind of detox they're gonna give you. And what I saw in Dallas County Jail, especially the guys that came in with the opiate addictions, they were the toughest cases, man. They'd go in the corner, and we just let them defecate on themselves for every couple of days we'd throw them through the showers and get them cleaned up. And a couple of weeks into it, they'd come back to normal again, as normal as possible. And I'm coming out with this dope, and I get in touch with my parents on the jail phone. And my parents live about 6 hours away in this town called Port Arthur, Texas, where I grew up. And my dad answers the phone on the first call, and he's devastated. He's distraught. My parents are, they raised me in a great family. We're going to talk about my life growing up soon. But my dad answers the phone, a guy that is pretty tough. I've never seen him hurt him cry, but he's crying in the phone. Damon, how we go so wrong, how we mess up so bad. What could we have done different? And so my mom gets on the phone, and she's telling me, hey, listen, your dad can't talk, but we need to have a conversation. She said, we love you unconditionally. There's nothing you could do to ever make us not love you. That was the deal we made with God when he loaned you to us. And then she reminded me of this prayer plaque that was on my wall as a kid, Footprints in the Sand.
Software Underbelly is about giving people a space to tell their stories, even when these stories challenge what we think we know. Ground News shows us different perspectives in the media, which is why Ground News is a perfect sponsor for my channel. In a world where algorithms censor much of the information we receive, some of the most important stories get missed from our news feeds. Ground News highlights local news from around the world, giving you an on-the-ground perspective that national coverage might miss. The app and website empowers you to form your own opinions by presenting you with every article published on any news story worldwide. My favorite part of the app is the data it gives you on each news source as you read it, such as where it leans on the political spectrum, a factuality rating indicating how subjective their printed reporting tends to be, and who funds it. I particularly like their blind spot feed, dedicated to showing you news stories that are underrepresented in the mainstream media. You can check this all out by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below. It's easy to forget how much bias can shape the reality we live in. And in a world where our attention is constantly being fought over, my Vantage plan easily helps me keep up with more important stories slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to check them out at ground.news/SWU. Subscribe through my link or download the mobile app and enter promo code SWU to save 40% off their Vantage plan. And by subscribing or even gifting it to someone you know, you're helping hold the media accountable and helping my channel directly. Thank you for watching.
And so she's telling me, get on God's back. But at this time, I don't have a real good concept of God in my life. I'm an addict. I'm living in my addiction. Here's what I know about addicts and their addiction, because I'm an addict in recovery today. Addicts, we want what we want when we want it, and we'll do just about anything to get to it. In my addiction, I was willing to violate people's homes and people's lives. When I broke into people's homes, I didn't just steal property from my victims. I stole something way more valuable from my victims. I stole something from my victims they can never replace. That's their sense of security. And I stole it from them. I can't give it back to them. And the state of Texas has told me I can't even go apologize to them. They have laws in Texas about apologies to victims. So I can never make an apology to my victims for the things that I did to them. But I realized when I went to my trial, the devastation that I caused some of these victims. The trial takes place on May 18th, 2009. Actually, May 18th, 2009 is the sixth and final day of my trial. And to give you more context for this, they got me into a courtroom in 10 months. If they can get you in courtroom in 10 months, that's called the rocket docket. That means they want you in a courtroom, and it means you're in serious trouble. May 18th, 2009. I'm standing in front of a jury in Dallas, and the jury, these 12 men and women from Dallas, they just sat through a 6-day criminal trial. And 6 days for a crime where no one was physically hurt, it means the evidence of my guilt is overwhelming. They've got me dead to rights. It's a RICO case now. It's not even a burglary case, it's RICO. And I'm the boss, I'm the figurehead for the whole thing. Everybody's testified against me. All the victims I had harmed have come up and testified about the damage I'd done. I'm sitting at the defense table and I'm like, man, I know I'm going to prison. I just don't know for how long. The jury goes to deliberate that last day for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I don't know how much Law and Order you watch, but if a jury's gone for 10 minutes, it means they smoked you. They brought me back in the courtroom and the judge read my sentence out loud. Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. 65 years in the state of Texas is a life sentence in the state of Texas. The jury gave me life that day, or as they say in prison terms, 6 dimes and a nickel. Now, understand, this is my first felony conviction ever. When I go into this thing, I'm thinking that there's chance for probation in this deal because I've never had a felony conviction, but I got maxed out on the first felony conviction ever. So right after the trial is over, the bailiff is on me, the sheriff is on me, they're handcuffing me, they're getting me out of there. They take me to this little side room and they told me to wait. And a few minutes later, my mom and my dad are escorted in on the other side of this glass. They got me in the glass partition there. And they're gonna give my parents one last visit with me before I go to prison. They actually feel sorry for my parents because I just got life. And my dad, he can't talk. He's in stunned disbelief that his son, who once had all this promise in life, just got a life sentence in prison. And what my dad is dealing with that day is I grew up in this great home, man. I came from this little town called Port Arthur, Texas. Port Arthur is down where Louisiana and Texas touch on the Gulf Coast. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a sports writer. In fact, My dad was a legendary sports writer in Texas. He was the first sports writer in Southeast Texas to put black athletes on the front page of sports pages. 1971, first time it ever happened. And when my dad put a black running back on the cover of sports pages, people lost their minds about that. They would break my dad's windows, they slit his tires, they sent him hate mail. When I was growing up as a little kid, my dad, he had so much character. He would make me read hate mail. He'd make me read these nasty, negative words that people said about my father and my mother, because my dad always told me sometimes in life you're going to have to take a stand, and taking a stand means you may have to stand alone. But he said it's always okay to stand alone as long as you're standing on the right side of history. I'm a good student growing up. Got all this support from my family, two-parent home. My mom and my dad were married for 55 years. I didn't know anything but having a mom and dad in the home. But above all else, I was a great athlete. God blessed me with a cannon for a right arm. And back in Texas, we got this little thing you may have heard about called high school football. The Friday night lights. And y'all, I grew up under the lights. It was intoxicating, man. I'm this high school football star in my town. And that's a big thing in Texas. 3-year starting quarterback at a 5A school. Scholarship to play football at the University of North Texas. Division I college football. By the time I'm 20, I'm the starting quarterback on a Division I team. And man, I thought I'd arrived. My head was this big. But life is a way of giving us these days that I call fork in the roads. Fork in the roads are the tough days, the days you get knocked down hard. You get up, you dust yourself off, you make a choice. And my fork in the road happened on September 21st, 1996, playing against Texas A&M. Beautiful Saturday in College Station, y'all. I'm 20. I'm driving my team down the field against the Aggies. Third play of the game, I go down with a career and injury. Never play college football again. And when I get up to this fork in the road in life and football's gone, my identity was gone too. And that's when the hardcore drugs start coming in. Now, it wasn't my first foray in drugs when I get into 20 years old. I didn't start out, like with cocaine and ecstasy and popping pills after my injury. My first introduction to drugs and alcohol came when I was 10. I got into my dad's beer for the first time in the fridge. Then it was smoking cigarettes. Then it was smoking pot. I didn't understand anything about addiction back then. I just thought I was having a good time. I didn't understand that I was in the early stages of a disease. But it came into full play after my injury, and that's when I got into serious drug addiction with cocaine and ecstasy and pills. But I'm a pretty functional addict back then. Graduate college, move off to Washington, D.C., worked in the United States Congress, worked for a guy running for president of the United States. 2004, I moved back to Dallas to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. And it was at that job as a broker in 2004 that my life and the lives of so many other innocent people forever are changed. Let me take you back to the day in 2004. I'm passed out of sleep at work. This other stockbroker comes in, he sees me sleeping, he wakes me up, he's visibly shaken. Damon, wake up, man. You can't sleep on this job. The markets are open. You're messing with people's money. They'll fire you if they catch you sleeping here. He said, come on down the parking garage. I've got something that'll pick you up. So that day in 2004, I follow this other stockbroker down to his car. We get into his nice little sports car and he hands me a glass pipe with crystal rocks in it. Now, I'd never seen a glass pipe before. Up until that point, my drug of choice was cocaine. I'd never seen a glass pipe. He said, I'm like, man, what is that? He said, Damon, just relax. It's crystal meth. He said, you're going to love this stuff. Truer words had never been spoken. I fell in love with crystal meth that day. It's the most evil, most destructive, most addictive drug ever created by man. I smoked it one time, instantly hooked just like that. And I couldn't give everything away fast enough for that drug because that's what addicts do. We give things away. Addicts give up their goals to meet their behaviors. That's the definition of addiction, by the way. When you give up goals to meet a behavior in life, you're an addict. And it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol. It's food, money, clothing, shopping, sex, pornography, the internet, Instagram, social media. I gave away my job, my home, my car, my savings account, my family, my tethering to God. In 18 months, I went from working on Wall Street to living on the streets of Dallas. And once I was homeless, living in dope houses, sleeping in cars, I became a criminal. Petty crimes at first, shoplifting, breaking into cars, breaking into storage units. Then it escalated to the very serious crime of home burglary. The crime where I told you about a while ago, where I didn't just steal people's property, I stole their sense of security. And then I became the crime boss of the whole ring. And these burglaries went on for about 3 years in Dallas. They called them the Uptown burglaries. They called me the Uptown burglar. But on July 30th, 2008, we know that the Uptown burglary crime spree came to an end because Dallas SWAT came in that day. And I look back on that day now that Dallas SWAT didn't just arrest me that day in 2008. They rescued me that day. SWAT saved my life. The angels in my story, they don't have wings. They have assault rifles and shields and helmets. They're coming through the windows. They bust the door off the hinges to pull me in that world that I was in. Dallas SWAT saved my life that day. And there's a good story about how that ends later on in the story too. So now we're back in the side room after the trial was over. I'm on the other side of the glass. My parents are right there. My dad's distraught. He can't talk. So my mom does all that talking that day on May 18, 2009. She has a conversation with me that would change the course of my life. She said, baby, debts in life demand to be paid. And you just got hit with one hell of a bill from the state of Texas. But you did everything they said you did, Damon, so you got to go and pay that debt to society. She said, you owe Texas that debt. But now you owe your father and I debt too. We gave you all the opportunity to love and support, to be anything you want to be in life. And that's how you just repaid us what we saw in that courtroom? It's not going to work. So here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get in one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type of gangs, because you're scared because you're the minority in there. She said, that's not going to work, Damon. You were never raised to be a racist. You're not starting that stuff now. She said, you will not get any tattoos while you're inside that prison. And that is why you see no ink on me. She said, no gangs, no tattoos. You come back as the man that we raised, or don't come back to us at all. I was stunned. I was floored. She said, do you understand the debt you're going to pay to us? I said, yeah, Mom, I got it. But what do I know about prison? I've never been to prison before. I don't know if it's been to prison at this point. I'm a white middle-class guy in America. I don't know anything about the prison system. I get back to my pod in Dallas County Jail. I've got 2 months before the prison bus comes to get me, and I'm frantically asking every guy that's been to prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And every guy I'm talking to in there, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they all say the same thing universally. You have to get into a gang. You can't survive without a gang. They said the gang will be your family now. But there was this one guy that was so different in there, y'all. This older black man named Muhammad. Now, Muhammad is what you would call a career criminal. He's been in and out of prison his entire life. But he's the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. This guy had a smile on his face everywhere he went. You couldn't knock the smile from Muhammad's face. And every morning, he comes to my cell, to my bunk, and he picks me up like a ray of sunshine in that dark place with his positive energy. So one morning, Muhammad comes up to my bunk. He's got a cup of coffee in his hands, had a smile on his face. This is the summer of 2009, y'all, in Dallas County Jail. He comes up to my bunk. He said, West, I've been watching you, man. I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and these dummies talk about you got to get into a gang. He said, do not listen to these fools. He said, you want to keep that promise you made to your mom and your dad? Then let me tell you what prison's really going to be like. And so he told me, the first thing you need to understand about prison is all about race. Race runs the whole institution side of a prison. And he said all the inmates want it that way. Everybody breaks off their own racial group. He said, so when you walk in the door, the white gangs are going to get the first dibs on you because you're white. The Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods. He said, you fight all the white gangs first. If you survive the white gangs, now you will fight black gangs. And the white gangs, he said, are going to send the black gangs after you. The Crips, the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, they're all going to tee off on you because you won't get with your own race and your own kind where you belong. He said, if you survive all that, and you can survive all that, you will earn the right to walk alone. He said the strongest man in prison always walks alone. And actually, in that moment, he sounded like my dad. 25 years earlier, a little boy reading hate mail, my dad was telling me about the importance of standing alone. And here it's being reinforced by this black Muslim guy in Dallas County Jail. He told me the truth about fighting. He said, you don't have to win all your fights, West, but you do have to fight all your fights. He said, some days you're going to win and some days you are going to lose. He said, it's okay when you lose as long as you get up. That's what he's telling me, get back up. But when he's telling me it's back 2009, I'm looking back at this guy like a deer in headlights, all this violence and terror I'm about to walk into. That's when he's like, Wes, he said, let me break this down for you a different way. He said, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. He said, now anything we put into a pot of boiling water will be changed by the heat and the pressure inside this pot. He said, I'm going to put 3 things in this pot of boiling water and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So he said, first things first. If I put a carrot in that pot of boiling water, he said, what happened to the carrot? I'm like, the carrot's going to turn soft. He said, that's right, West. He said, but the carrot goes in the water hard and firm, but the water, the prison, turns the hard carrot soft and mushy and weak. He said, you don't want to be a carrot. He said, what about the egg? What happened to the egg in the pot of boiling water? I'm like, the egg is going to turn hard, Muhammad, like a hard-boiled egg. He said, that's right, West. He said, the egg has a shell that can protect it physically on the outside, but inside that shell, that soft liquid core, that yolk, that heart becomes hardened. He said, now, if your heart becomes hardened, you become incapable of giving or receiving love. He said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love in the world you're going into, you do not come back as someone your parents recognize. You've become institutionalized, and your eggshell will have swastikas all over it. Then he asked me the question. He said, what about the coffee bean, West? He said, what happened to the coffee bean in the pot of boiling water? And I didn't have an answer from Muhammad on that one. I didn't know what happened to a coffee bean in a pot of boiling water. And that is when Muhammad, a man who looks nothing like me, a man who doesn't come from the same America I came from, a man who doesn't believe the same things I believe in my life. This is a black Muslim man from the streets of Dallas, Texas. I'm this white middle-class Catholic guy from a little town called Port Arthur, Texas. But this man who is so different than me, he is going to share with me one of the most important and transformational messages I've ever received in my entire life. And the moral to that is this. It's actually a theme throughout my whole story. If you ever shut yourself off to other people because of their differences, different race, gender, ethnicity, different religion, different experiences, different opinions, different political views, if you close yourself off to people because of their differences, you're going to miss some of the most important messengers and some of the best friendships in life. Because the messengers in life can come to you from anywhere in life. And the messengers won't always look like you. They won't always come from the same background as you. But the trick to life that I've learned, especially going through the situation I was in, is you have to be receptive to all life's messengers to get all of life's messages. Muhammad told me that day. He said, if I put a coffee bean in that same pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you got to change the name of the water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, West, the smallest of the three things, small like you, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot because the power is inside the coffee bean. He said, just like the power is inside of you. He said, everything else in life is changed by the water in life. Carrots are changed by the water. Eggs are changed by the water, but not a coffee bean. He said the coffee bean is the only thing that can change the water because it's the change agent. If you want to come back as someone your parents recognize, you got to be like that coffee bean too. He told me what the first day of prison would look like. He said, West, when they get you to prison, you're a lifer. They're going to separate you out from everybody else. In the Texas prison system, if you have a life sentence, you are segregated out from the rest of the general population. Lifers can't live with general population, not until they've done at least 5 to 10 years in the system. They want you to get escaping off your minds. So you live in this little island in prison, the most dangerous island you can imagine, where everybody in your island has a life sentence. They've been banished. 99% of these people are never going home again. And that's what he's telling me. You're going to the life sentence building, the most dangerous part of prison there is. He said, when they take you to the life sentence building that first day, they're going to walk you in. He said, they're going to let you go in by yourself. He said, when you walk in the first day, do not run to your bunk like the guys that are scared. He said, when you walk in that day room, put your bags down, put your back against the wall, and just let it happen. And I'm like, what happened, old man? What are you talking about? He said, your heart check. He said, the heart check was the most important fight of prison. Happens on day one. They want to see what your heart's pumping. They want to see what you're made of. He said, you're going to be approached first by a white guy because you're white. He said, the first guy's going to approach you. He's not a threat to you. He's just an information gatherer. He's a scout. He'll ask you one relevant question in this first conversation. What gang are you going to be a part of? He said, man, get him out of your face as fast as you can and get your head on a swivel and get ready. Because the second guy coming up to you, he's not coming to talk to you. He's coming to hurt you. The second guy comes up to you, when he gets within range of you, put your fist in his mouth. He said, man, hit this guy as hard as you can. You got to get the jump on your first fight. And just about that time, in the summer of 2009, Muhammad's making bond. He's leaving Dallas County Jail at the front door. The prison bus is getting ready to pick me up on the back dock to go serve a life sentence in prison. He has 4 words for me on the way out the door when he leaves Dallas County Jail that day. He said, hey, West, be a coffee bean. Those were the 4 words that changed my life. Because what those 4 words did for me is they put the power back inside me. Now, if the power's inside me, this is the thing now. If the power's truly inside me, it can't be in the world around me, right? Where I thought the power was, right? The criminal justice system, the guards, the other inmates, it was inside me. It was the ultimate message I'd ever heard that our world is created from the inside out and not the outside in. And I knew, I'm like, if I can find a way to keep the power inside me, I don't survive prison, I can thrive inside that prison. And I go around telling the story of the coffee bean because I want people to know that the power's inside them too. It's not what goes on in the towns you live in, the state you're from, the crazy politics and social problems this country has right now, social media. That's not where the power is. The power's inside each individual. But we have to find a way to keep the power inside us. And if we do that, we don't survive our adversity, we thrive in our adversity. I know this for a fact. I know the coffee bean works for a fact because I took the coffee bean message to the biggest pot of boiling water there is, a level 5 maximum security prison in the state of Texas. So let's get to the prison stories. So the bus ride to prison. First of all, the bus ride, you're chained up to another human being. It's a cage on wheels. There's fights breaking out everywhere. Everybody's terrified. They're going to prison. Some people are used to this. They've been more than one time. There's fights breaking out. You're handcuffed to another guy. The bus stinks. There's a bucket in the back. That, if you have to go to the bathroom, the guy handcuffed you goes to the bathroom, number 1 or number 2. You get to prison. They hose you down, they clean you off, and they separated me out from everybody else, just like Muhammad said they would. And they take me to the life sentence building on the Mark Stiles unit in Beaumont, Texas. Now, the Mark Stiles unit is one of the toughest prisons in Texas. And I would find out it's one of the toughest prisons in America. And I know that because later in the story, you're going to find out that after I got out of prison, I went back to school and got a master's degree in criminal justice and became a professor at the University of Houston, downtown, teaching a class called Prisons in America. Yeah, I know a lot about prison. Stiles, where I did my time, it's one of the hardest places in America to do time. So I walk in the Stiles unit that day. They separate me out from everybody else. They take me to the life sentence building. Life sentence building is 7 building. 7 building has 432 men. Every man's got life. It's the place where everything goes to die. Dreams and everything else go to die. I walk into 7 building that first day. I got a mattress under one arm. I got a couple bags of property. The guard is screaming at me to go through the Sally Port door, but I don't want to go in because I know once I'm in, I'm in. But I got to go. So I take that big first step into prison. The door closed behind me, and I walk in this room. I'm in the giant room with 3 levels of cells. Inmates are hanging over the railings. It's loud, y'all. Prison was a loud place. But as soon as the door closed behind me, the volume drops to 0. And everybody's staring at the new guy that just walked in. And I'm terrified by this. And the only thought going through my head, run for it. Forget what Muhammad said, run for it. So I start looking for my cell. My cell is 45 cell. 45 cells up on the 3rd tier by the showers. Furthest cell from the door. I'm like, I'll never make it. They'll get me. So reluctantly, I put my mattress down, I put my bags down, I put my back against the wall, and I waited. Didn't take 5 minutes. Here he comes. Little white guy, just like Muhammad said he would be. Little bitty bald-headed white dude. He's tatted up from head to toe. Even his eyelids are tatted up. He gets in my face. He says, hey, white boy. He said, what family are you riding with, white boy? They call gangs families in prison. Now, a gang is not a family, y'all. But this is what this guy believes. He said, what family are you riding with, white boy? I'm like, man, get out of my face, little dude. I'm riding with God. Please just leave me alone. I'm riding with God. He laughed at me. He said, God isn't here, white boy. He said, we kicked God out of this place a long time ago. He said, God's been gone from here, but we're here, white boy, and we're going to come get you. Get ready, white boy. He runs up the stairwell on the right side. Man, I am freaked out. I'm ready to pee in my pants. I'm so freaking scared, but I don't have time for that because coming in the 3rd tier, biggest corn-fed white dude I've ever seen in my life. This dude is he's an ogre. He's massive. And he points at me from the 3rd run. So I know he's coming for me. I'm watching him walk down the stairs too. Huge, massive dude, built up with a bunch of muscles popping out of his shirt, bald head with a swastika all around the top of his skull. Man, all I see is 2 beady eyeballs, swastikas, and a bunch of muscles coming at me on this Aryan Brotherhood. But I remember what Muhammad said. And when this big ogre got within range of me, man, I reached up, I hit this dude in the mouth as hard as I could. I gave him everything I had. And in 20 seconds, my first fight in prison was over. Because that big dude beat the shit out of me. He beat me from one side of the day room to the other. Man, in 20 seconds, that fight was over, man. My first fight in prison, I show up, I fight, and I lose. And that's what fighting looks like for me in prison, y'all. Man, I probably got in 3 dozen fights in the first 2 months. It was a bloodbath in prison. I probably got in 3 dozen fights and lose 75% of these fights. Man, I'm getting my butt kicked all over prison. But actually, looking back on it, I'm winning all the fights because I'm showing up to the fight. Because Muhammad said, you don't have to win those fights. Muhammad's thing that he really stressed me on is like, you got to show up because if you don't show up for yourself, the predators come out, they devour you. He said, just keep showing up. Don't worry about wins and losses. That's what I'm doing. Every day I'm getting up. Most of the days I'm fighting. It takes 2 weeks to get through the white gangs. After that, it's the black gangs, just like Muhammad said. About 6 weeks into prison, it's on a Friday, I get jumped. And it's the black gangs I'm still fighting at this point. And man, I'm beat down so bad. I made a decision that night after that fight that I was going to fix this whole problem the next day on Saturday. And the decision was I was going to kill myself because I thought it'd just be easier. Man, my parents, instead of coming into visitation, seeing their son beat up all the time, I could just do that. They could go visit a grave. And during this time, I'm looking at the barrel of a life sentence, 65 years. There's no way I'm going to survive this. So that Saturday morning, 6 weeks in, I get up and I'm going to go to church, Catholic Mass that Saturday morning. And I'm standing in this church service, and there's about 200 inmates in there, and I'm just staring at the front at the altar, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and it's this little volunteer chaplain lady, Miss D. And Miss D, man, she was a wonderful woman. She's in her 80s, and she just loved volunteering inside the prison. Miss D said, "Hey, Mr. West, I need to talk to you in my office. Come with me real quick." So I leave the Mass, and I go sit in her office, and she sits me down. She said, "Mr. West, I can see that something's bothering you today." She said, "What's bothering you?" I first thought is like, man, there's 200 inmates in here and we're all serving life. Something's bothering everybody in this room, right? But I broke down and I told her, I said, "Miss D, I can't take it anymore." I started crying. I told her, I said, "I can't take it." And I told her what my plan was. I'm checking out. I'm going to kill myself. And she was just really calm. She said, "Mr. West, you can't kill yourself." She said, "You can't give up on God." The minute she mentioned God, I got so angry. I said, "What do you mean God? How does God create a place so wicked and evil and sinister as this prison?" She was just really calm. She said, "Mr. West, you're not the first person to get angry with God." She said, "The Bible's full of people that got angry with God, but they all come back to God because they learned the secret to faith." And I said, "Miss D, what's the secret to faith then?" She said, "If you're going to pray, don't worry. But if you're going to worry, don't pray." She said, "You can't do his job and your job. You can't do both." She said, "You're either going to let God drive the car or you're going to drive the car. But the last time you drove the car, you parked it in a maximum security prison. So choose who gets those keys today, but choose wisely." And she let me walk out of her office with a suicide watch on me, which was amazing. She's supposed to call the warden at that point, but she didn't. So that weekend, I think about, what have I not used to earn respect inside this place? How can I get to the end of all this violence? And it came to me on Monday morning, 6 weeks in. I wake up that Monday morning, 6 weeks in. Remember, I'm still fighting the black gangs at this point. The hope is almost gone. The violence, the terror is just too much. But I made a decision that Monday morning to use the one thing I haven't used to earn respect inside that prison, and that's my athletic ability. Now, y'all, God blessed me to be a tremendous athlete in life. I was a Division I starting quarterback at 20. I'm a baller. But the rec yard, where you play sports in the Life Sentence building, the rec yard's the most intimidating place I've ever seen because it was the most segregated place I've ever seen. Every sport on the rec yard is segregated by the color of your skin. It was like walking back in time in this place. Let me walk you through the rec yard real quick, give you a visual. So you go out to the rec yard, there's sand volleyball. Sand volleyball, that's for the whites and Hispanics. Handball, the big handball walls, all races can play handball in prison. But if you want to play a game of doubles, your doubles partner has to be the same skin color as you. You can't mix the races in there. The weight stack, just like you see in all those prison movies. Everybody wants to push that iron in prison, and all the races can lift weights, but if you wanted someone to spot you, someone to work out with you, your partner, your spotter, got to be the same skin color as you. You could not mix races in there. The chow hall was the same way. You couldn't go to the chow hall and sit down at the table with people from a different race to eat your meal. Race was everything, and every race wanted the division that way. That Monday morning, 6 weeks in, I face my fears. I go out to the rec yard. I pass up all those other sports I just told you about, and I went straight to the basketball court. Now, the basketball court. The blacks run the basketball court. No white boys are allowed in that basketball court. But here's what I'm thinking about as I go to the rec yard that day to go play basketball. I know that in America, sports is the great uniter. Sports is the one thing that brings all of us Americans together like nothing else can. Here's what I'm thinking about too. I'm going out there, I'm thinking, man, before there was Martin Luther King Jr., there was Jackie Robinson. Before you integrated lunch counters in the American South where I came from, you integrated locker rooms. My dad was the example. He broke the color barrier in sports pages in Texas. I knew sports would be the thing that did it for me. It was a giant melting pot. Not even religion brings us Americans together like sports, because we can self-segregate religions in America, and we do. But sports is where it all comes together. We root for our teams. That Monday morning, I went out and I bet on myself. I got myself in a game of basketball, and I got a little bit over my head Because these guys let me play basketball, but it wasn't 5-on-5 basketball. It's 9-on-1, man. Remember, I don't belong out there. My own teammates don't want me out there. But I keep showing up every day in that rec yard. I get a little bit better, a little stronger, a little more confident. I learned, my friend Ed Milet told me this later in life. He said, confidence comes from the promises that you keep to yourself. And every day on the rec yard, I was doing that. I was making a promise I'd come back out the next day to myself, and I'd show up out there. And after a week of playing basketball with these guys, they circled around in the basketball court the last day. They said, West, you don't have to worry about the blacks first time you're here, man. You're good to go with us. You took everything we had. You gave it back when you could. That took a lot of guts. And he said, you never want, the gang leader out there is Jay Blood. He's telling me, man, you never once got racial with us, and that's important to us. So you've earned your right to exist in this place. You'll never have to worry about us again. Go live your life. So I go off the rec yard that day, man. I'm beaming. I tell my dad at visitation that Saturday, man, I got this big, what I did. My dad was super proud too, because I used sports. I used the vehicle he raised me in. My dad was a sports writer for 50 years. He was real happy about that. But I did what I had done so many other times in life. I cut a corner. In my life, there's a lot of corners that I cut in life, especially with addiction and life, because I was the golden child. Everything was laid out in front of me, and things came to me pretty easily in life. What I did on the rec yard, I went out there and cut a corner to respect. And what Jay Blood did on the rec yard when he told me the blacks won't mess with you again, he made a promise he couldn't keep, because no one black person in prison can keep all the blacks off of a white person. That's a death sentence for a black guy to get in the way of something like that. Remember, race is king. Race runs everything. So 2 weeks after that rec yard game, I'm coming off the rec yard, and I'm coming back into the cell block. My cellmate, a little guy named Carlos, man. Carlos is about 5'4". He's a little Hispanic guy, a little bank robber from San Antonio, Texas. Carlos has served for 99 years for a bunch of bank jobs, dude. He's a super nice guy. And remember, man, I live with the lifers. You got to change your mind about who the good guys and bad guys are. But really, Carlos is a bad bank robber, but he's a really good guy. He's my cellmate. He's one of my best friends still to this day. I still talk to Carlos all the time. He's in prison for a long time. So that day, 2 weeks after the 2 weeks after the basketball court story, I'm coming off the rec yard. Carlos is agitated, man. He grabs me right when I come in the cell block. He said, come with me. So we go under the stairs where there's no cameras and nobody can see you. He said, man, West, he said, when you go to the showers today, just know this, man. He said, Blackjack is waiting for you in the showers. Now, Blackjack is the biggest rapist in prison. He's about 6'4", 260, big, huge black guy, loves to rape white guys. That's why I call him Blackjack. And he does it with a knife, and he's HIV positive. He is death in many ways. And I'm terrified when he tells me that Blackjack's gonna be waiting for him in the shower. But he scolded me too. He said, I told you, you shouldn't go out there with the blacks. You don't belong out there with the blacks. But when you did that, you got his attention. And now he's here to rape you. What are you gonna do about it? And I'm like, man, I said, Carlos, I'm not gonna do anything about it. I'm gonna go hide in the cell, man. I'm not gonna take a shower today. I know it's gonna stink, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to the shower today. He said, you must go to the shower today. He said, Blackjack is here to rape you. If he doesn't rape you, he's gonna rape someone else. He said, and that's on you too now. Now you got two problems. He said, you're on the track and the train is coming. What are you prepared to do? And I'm like, man, Carlos, he's got a knife. I don't have a knife. Man, Carlos whips a knife out of his pants. It's gotta be about this long. I don't even know where this little guy's hiding this thing, man. So he puts this blade in my hand, and the blade in prison is any piece of steel. It's been sharpened down to razor's edge. It's got a bunch of duct tape around the handle. Puts his blade in my hand, and I hold it, and I look at it, turn it over a few times, and I hand it back to him. I'm like, hey, Carlos, I've never fought with a knife before. This guy's been doing this for 20 years, man. He's gonna slice me up in there. There's gotta be another weapon, another way. He said, there is another weapon, there is another way. He said, I'll meet you in the cell. Go to the cell right now. So I go up to our cell, which is 45 cell, and I wait for Carlos. And about 5 minutes later, Carlos comes in, and he's got some tools in his hands. Now listen, in the Texas prison system, there's no air conditioning in Texas prisons. It is hot in Texas prisons, y'all. And I live on the Gulf Coast. I'm in Beaumont, Texas in prison. That's on the Gulf Coast. It's hot in there. This is March of 2010. I don't need my fan. We have these little personal fans in there. I don't need my fan for anything at that point. And that's what Carlos does that day. He takes my fan, he takes it apart, and he cuts the fan motor out of the fan. He drops the fan motor in this little mesh shower bag, and he starts swinging this bag around the cell. He said, this is your weapon today. And the weapon he just created is like a medieval weapon, a ball and chain flail. He said, now do everything I tell you to do, exactly how I tell you to do it. He said, go to the showers. And the showers are a single man shower. And when you walk in, they got a little change area off to the side, and the shower's in the back. He said, go to the shower, turn the water on really hot, get it going really hot, get the steam in there. Go to that little change area. And he said, wait in there. And he said, as soon as Blackjack pops his head through the shower door, hit him in the head with this fan motor. Now, this fan motor is 5 pounds of metal and wire, man. He said, hit him in the head with the fan motor. He said, the first hit that you get on this guy, you're just going to stun him, man. He's a big dude. You're just going to stun him. He said, but when you stun him, get on top of him and swing this fan motor as hard as you can at his head. He said, do not stop swinging until you see his brains coming out of his skull. He said, you have to put this animal down. He's an animal. And what I would find out later on is that everybody wanted Blackjack dead. And Carlos and the other Mexicans saw a chance for me to be used to kill this guy. Like, I'm the perfect guy to ambush this guy because Blackjack's not expecting it, right? But Carlos told me that day, he said, Wes, one of 2 things is going to happen to you today. He said, either he's going to get the upper hand on you and he's going to do something to you and you're going to wish you're dead after it's done, or you're going to get the upper hand on him and you're going to kill him today. He said, but whatever happens today, you'll never leave prison alive. Do you understand me? This is the end of the road for you. This is your life forever. He said, because if you kill this guy, they could give you the death sentence, but they're certainly going to never let you out of this place. He said, you're never leaving this place alive. Do you understand? I said, yeah, I got it, man. Give me the bag. So I take this bag to the shower, and it's just 20 feet from my cell to the shower door, but it feels like it's 20 yards, right? 20 miles. As I walk into the shower, I'm thinking to myself about life, man. How did I get to this place, man? I mean, Damon, you had it all, man. You were the golden child. You had it all. All these things happened for you in life. The quarterback, the guy, the stockbroker. But here you are, man. You're about to go into the shower, kill or be killed. But I push the thought out of my head because it's preservation of life at this point. And your mind has this huge preservation of life instinct. And so I go in the shower. I do everything he says. I wait in the change area. And I don't know if it's 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, man. My heart is thumped through my chest. But he opens up the shower door. And as soon as I watched him walk in, he had this big grin on his face, like this guy that's about to get laid at 2 a.m, right? He's just grinning. And man, that was it. That broke the damn loose on me, man. I reached back. I got to a reservoir of hate. And I swung this fan motor as hard as I could. Boom! And he raises up at the last second, hits him in the chest. I mean, it shoots him back like a cartoon character getting shot out of a cannon. He drops the knife when he gets hit. He's on the ground. We're on the 3rd tier by the showers, man. I get out there and I start swinging this fan motor like a madman. I'm trying to, and I've lost it, man. I've crossed over this line where I'm ready to take a human life, and there's no turning back for me. I'm swinging this thing. I can't get to his head. He's got his head covered up, so I'm hitting ribs. I'm hearing ribs breaking this thing. Well, about that time, 2 of his gang brothers, he's a Mandingo warrior, 2 of these gang brothers see what's happening. They're flying up the stairs, and they get up there to the top, and I'm trying to finish this guy off, and the Mandingo warriors are like, hey, West, don't lay another hand on this dude. They said, listen, man, it is over. He had a weapon. You had a weapon. It's over. And I'm telling him, man, he tried to rape me. And they told me, man, he's a rapist, man. That's what he does. He rapes people, man, but he's our brother. You can't just kill our brother. If you lay another hand on this dude, we got to kill you, man. And, I can see in their faces, they don't want to kill him. These are guys that I've been playing basketball with for 2 weeks now. Since I got allowed on the basketball court, I've been going out there every day with these guys playing basketball. And these Mandingo warriors play basketball with me. Wes, we don't want to kill you, man, but we're going to have to kill you if you lay down a hand on this dude. Beat your feet, man. We're going to let you live. So I grab my bag. I go to my cell, and I throw the bag on the floor. And, man, I curl up in the corner of my cell, and I start crying like a baby. And I mean, the adrenaline is burning off. I can't believe what just happened to me. This real. This is happening. The adrenaline starts burning off, and I pass out. I'm out cold. And I woke up, and I was so hungry. I felt like my stomach and my back were touch each other. I'm so hungry, man. I'm just starving because that adrenaline burned off. And I hear the cell doors rolling. That's what wakes me up. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to get the last chow. Because when I got out of the showers after that fight, it was right before last chow. I was like, man, cool. I wasn't out too long to go to last chow. But I look at the way the light's coming in the little cell, the slit for the cell window. It's not last chow. It's morning chow. Like, I've been out for 12 hours, man. And I realized, like, oh, man, this really happened. I look over. I see the bag. The bag is full of blood. Now I start looking for cuts on me. Like, this guy's HIV positive. No cuts on me. It's all his blood. But the realization is this. I've got to walk out this cell door. I can't stay in my cell forever. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if someone's going to stick a piece of steel in me. What I did yesterday, I mean, at the minimum, it's attempted murder. So I walk out that cell, and prison changed forever. I never had to fight again because every man in prison saw that I spoke the only language you have to speak in prison, which is violence. Violence is the only language you become fluent in a maximum security level 5 prison. Everybody speaks violence. Either someone speaks it to you or you speak it to them, but you have to become fluent in the language of violence. And after I'd taken down Blackjack in the shower that day, I didn't kill him, but after I took him down, no one messed with me again because they saw that this guy could take a human life if he had to. And everybody backed off. And 2 months into prison is when I finally had a chance to breathe and kind of recalibrate and try to decide, how am I going to do this? How am I going to become that coffee bean? And, I'm telling Carlos at this point in the cell, and we, cellmates talk every night in their bunks, and Carlos he's really like a walking teacher with me. And he's telling me about, who to stay away from, what to do. And he told me something too. It's a story I want to share with everybody today. He was telling me about the people to stay away from. And he said, listen, you're going to see guys in here that have pet mice. Stay away from every man that's got a pet mice. And I'm like, why? I mean, are they dirty? Do they have lice or something? He said, no, it's the way they get the mice to obey them. So first of all, to have a pet mouse in prison, you have to catch a mouse. And there's mice everywhere in prison. Prison's a dirty place. There's mice, there's roaches everywhere. So at night, you lay a trap. Empty potato chip bag, put peanut butter in the back of it, and the inmate will wait for the mouse to come in the bag. And when the mouse crinkles the bag, he closes the top of the bag, and he takes it over to the toilet bowl. So in the little cells that we live in, little 10 by 12 cells, there's a bunk bed, there's a metal desk, there's a metal toilet. This is your house. You live in this little area. So the inmate that wants the pet mouse, he's got the mouse in this potato chip bag at the bottom of it, and he takes it over the few steps to the toilet bowl, and he'll take the mouse out, and he'll throw the mouse in the toilet, and he drowns the mouse. Now, the mouse is scared to death when he's in the water, right? He's in the toilet, and it's a metal toilet, so his little claws can't gain any purchase on that steel. And as soon as the mouse is getting ready to let go and die, the inmate reaches in and saves the mouse, pulls the mouse out of the water, rubs on it, loves on it, whispers to it things like, I love you, I'm here to protect you, I'm always going to look out for you, feeds it, nourishes it, lets it sleep overnight. And then the next day, the inmate will take the mouse out of the jar that he's been living in, throw him back in the toilet, drown him, save him again. This goes on for about 2 weeks until the guy finally breaks the mouse. And when the guy breaks the mouse, that's when the mouse stops seeing the guy that throws him in the water as a tormentor and starts seeing the hand that pulls him out as a savior. Once the mouse is broken, the mouse never leaves the man's side. And I saw guys in prison that had pet mice. Mice would just hang out in their cell with them on the pillow next to them when they're laying down in their bunks. But Carlos is telling me, these guys treat human beings the same way they treat the mouse. They're manipulators. They're people that take advantage of other people. So stay away from that. He's really like this guy that's really my first teacher in there. And he's telling me about things like, you have to change the way you think inside this place. You have to stop looking at prison as a punishment and start seeing prison as an opportunity. And that's when the shift started happening. I started looking at prison as an opportunity. I got up every day and I'm like, how do I work on myself for this 24 hours and become the best version of myself? And then I found a 12-step program recovery. And that's when I started getting a lot of answers to what was going on in my life. I started going to AA meetings, and I say AA, and I don't speak for AA. I'm not a speaker for AA. It just happens to be the 12-step program recovery that I go to this day in my life. I go to meetings every week. I got a sponsor. I work the steps, and that's where I met my sponsor. We'll call him Ray to protect his anonymity. And when I started working the 12 steps in there, I started getting the lessons and principles and morals I needed to live a good life. In the 12 steps, you learn how to get through your baggage in life. What we're always trying to do in the 12 steps is keep our side of the street clean. Because if we can keep our side of the street clean, and we can have a good life. And what that means is you can't clean anybody else's side of the street. You're only responsible for your side of the street. But keeping your side of the street clean means you have to go through all your resentments, your fears, your doubts. You have to work these things called a personal inventory. A personal inventory is when you find a resentment you have in life and you figure out why that thing bothers you so bad. Or you find a fear and find out why you fear it so much. And what we're always trying to do in the program recovery is find out the role we play in all of our problems. Because if we can find the role that we played, and that's the one thing we can change, that's the one thing we can fix, that's the one thing and only thing we can control. Addiction, I found out, is addicts, we are obsessed with trying to control things that we cannot control. That's really what a big thing about addiction is. You want to try to control these things, but in a program recovery, you give up this idea of control. You turn your life over to a higher power. And I think this is a really important component to the 12 steps is the higher power. It's not a Christian-based program. It's not any religion-based program. Religion and spirituality are two very different things. Religion is a man-made thing, while spirituality is your conscious contact with whatever you call God. And so I'm a Christian, so my higher power is Christ, but I always tell people all the time, find your higher power, turn your life and your will, your thoughts and your actions over to that higher power, and watch your life take off. And, you know, in the program recovery, we have these things, these steps that we work, the 12 steps. The 8th step is when you make a list of all the people you've harmed and you become willing to make the amends. The 9th step is when you go out and make the amends, except when to do so would cause you or them harm. And in the 12 steps, we have this thing called a living amends. Now, a living amends is when you go out and you do good deeds for other people, you expect nothing in return. Living amends are for the apologies you can't make because it causes harm to either you or them. This is where my life becomes like, this is where I get purpose in my life. Because remember, I've got all these victims I'm never going to apologize to. I can't apologize to my victims. That sends me back to prison. That's another felony. So in my life, I become obsessed, become addicted, if you will, with working, living amends. And that's when I go out and I look for ways to serve other people. I learned how to pray when I got into recovery. I've got this little prayer that I pray every morning, and you can plug it into your life, whatever faith you are. If you have no faith at all, whatever. My prayer is this. I get up in the morning and I say, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you, and let me recognize that when I see it, because I don't want to miss whatever that thing is. And that's it. That's all I do every day as I look for ways to be useful and ways to serve. In recovery, we learn about serving other people. Servant leadership. Servant leadership is helping other people reach their goals in life. We help raise other people up to a different station of life, because when we help other people grow, we grow too. I was in a meeting in prison, an AA meeting, and somebody once said that, if we could all throw our problems onto a pile, and then we could go to that pile and we could pick up someone else's problem, most likely you would go to that pile and you would pick up your own problem again when you see what everybody else is carrying around with them. And that really stuck with me. Even if you're sitting in a maximum security level 5 prison serving a life sentence, you find out that your problems aren't as bad as even some other people's problems are. I've lived on the streets. I've lived in addiction, and I lived in a prison, and I found out that no matter where you are in life, you have the power to impact other people, because your stories and your stories become your lessons. Your lessons are how you get past your past. Your past don't really define you. They're there to serve as a warning for you, a lesson for other people too. I think your past is your lesson, and your present today is what you do with it. It's your opportunities, and the future is like a motivation. And my motivation obviously is to do these living amends, to find ways to serve other people. And when I was in prison, my motivation there, I was like, how do I serve these men around me? And I started teaching guys how to read and write in prison, because I had a college degree when I went to prison. Most of the guys I'm locked up with, they don't have the same benefits I had growing up. Here's what I saw. This is before I become this professor of prisons when I get out of prison one day. This is from my PhD from the School of Hard Knocks. I'm a sober observer to the world of prison in there. And man, it's like, prison is like waking up in a giant lab experiment. It's like waking up in a giant petri dish every day. You're the lab rat. You're the experiment. You're part of the experiment, right? So I'm running around prison and I'm just asking these guys I'm doing time with, how did you get here, man? What's your story? Kind of like what you do with these interviews all the time, these portraits that you do. I'm doing this in prison because where else am I going to get to like examine all these different cases, right? And I was able to identify while I was in prison what I think the 5 variables are of who goes to prison in America. So here's the variables from greatest to least inside of a maximum security level 5 prison. Poverty. Poor people go to prison more than anybody else in America. Poor people are in the criminal justice system more than anybody else, because justice is out of reach for people that don't have the means to afford it. Lack of education. That's number 2. Lack of education. Most of the men I'm locked up with, their education stopped in 7th grade or 8th grade somewhere. I had a bachelor's degree when I went to prison. So these 2 variables don't affect me yet. 3rd variable, lack of a family unit. Most of the men I'm locked up with, they didn't have a father in the home. Some of them didn't have a mother in the home. There was guys locked up with this murderer in there. This bad dude, man. He had scars up and down his arm. And I asked him one day, we got to be friends in there, and I asked him one day, where did those scars come from? He said, those came from my mother. He said, starting about 7 years old, my mother would send me out to snatch purses. And if I didn't get enough purses, or those purses didn't have enough money in them, she'd burn me with cigarettes. His arm was full of burn marks from his mother. How do you fix that guy? That's trauma healing, right? And that's one of the things we're missing inside the prison system right now. You want to fix the prison system in America? You want to fix incarceration, that part of the criminal justice system? You need to have trauma healing. And that goes with addiction and recovery too. People are carrying around a lot of stuff, and you have to get to the core of where all this stuff comes from, right? So poverty. lack of an education, lack of a family unit. Race, that's the fourth variable. And look, race is a big factor in there. When I walked into prison, I saw all these black men around me. I'm like, man, what the hell happened inside of America in the prison system, right? Almost half the prison population in America is black men. Now, black men make up 6.5% of our entire American population. Black people are 13%, but about 6.5% of the population in America is black men, but they make up almost 50% of our prison population. You can't convince me that 6.5% of the population commits half the crime. Something is wrong in this country. And I'm looking at this stuff and I'm looking around me. The population in prison goes from black, the next representation that's the greatest is Hispanics, and the lowest representation is whites. Whites make up the greatest representation out in the free world. It's upside down in prison. And so I know that race is a giant factor in there. The fifth variable that I found out why people go to prison in America, substance abuse / mental health. Now that's the rail that I touched. The first four didn't affect me. White, middle-class guy, well-spoken, great family, great education. None of these things, the other four variables got me, but it was substance abuse. And that's the fifth one. That's the lowest representation. And 80% of the people that are incarcerated in America have substance abuse issues. And I think it's higher in women's prisons. Women go through a lot more traumatic stuff before they get to prison than men do. And I think that level is a lot higher in the 90s of substance abuse for women in the women's prison system. So I'm in prison. I know that the one thing I could do is teach people because I had a bachelor's degree. So I taught guys how to read and write. I get them ready for the GED test. So if they ever get out of prison one day, they could be a better husband or a better father. And I'm just trying to find ways that I can serve in there. And what I found out was this. Human beings want two things out of life. We want to belong and we want to be loved. And if these two things can be met, human beings are capable of so much in life. But belonging and be loving was a very big thing. And once I understood the world around me in prison, that most of the guys I'm with have never been introduced to what a healthy community looks like because they didn't have those structures in their life growing up. So I started teaching guys what a healthy community looks like. A healthy community, in my opinion, is a community where everybody puts their talents out on the table. And when you put your talents on the table, you say, hey, this is what I've got. This is the skill that I can bring to our society out here. If anybody needs a skill, I'm your guy. And once I started teaching people about sharing your talents with others, prison changed. The whole thing changed. Inside this level 5 maximum security prison in Beaumont, one of the toughest prisons in Texas, this transformation started taking place. And in 2015, 7 years into my life sentence, I work in the chapel at that point as a chapel clerk. Chaplain Vance comes in that day, and he was so excited. He said, West, security just called your name over the radio. The parole board's here to see you. Now, parole is the dream of every man and woman in prison. This is your only chance out of this place. And I know I'm up for parole at 7 years. The reason why I'm up for parole so early on a life sentence is because I've got a non-aggravated life sentence. My crimes don't have physical victims. These are property crimes around meth. And because I don't have a physical victim, I don't have to do all the time that a violent criminal would do, because Texas has two different kinds of crimes, aggravated and non-aggravated, violent and non-violent. I'm a non-violent guy. And so my first parole date at 7 years, I know I'm up for parole, but I'm not gonna make the first parole. I mean, no one makes the first parole. But I go down to the parole office that day. The lady from parole calls me in. She said, have a seat, Mr. West. She said, sit down. So I sit down in front of this lady, and she's got my criminal file in front of her. It's about this thick. They call it your jacket. Your jacket has everything about you. It's your whole life story. It's every arrest. It's every felony. She's flipping through the pages of my jacket for about 20 seconds. She slammed the big file shut. She pushed it away. She said, Mr. West, I came here today to ask you one question for this parole hearing. She said, it's a one-question test. The answer to the question can determine whether or not you go home or you stay in this prison. But the answer to my question is not in the file about the guy that I'm reading about who committed all those crimes in Dallas all those years ago. She told me, she said, we don't see a lot of people like you in the criminal justice system because you had it all. You had every advantage, every privilege, and every opportunity over everybody else your entire life. She said, you're the definition of a privileged person in America. And she read the file right. You've heard the story. She read the file right. I was a privileged person. I had it all. She said, but you blew through all your privileges. You became a drug addict. You became a criminal. You became a thief. A jury in Dallas gave you life in prison for the things you did. But instead of letting that life sentence define you, you changed yourself inside this prison, Mr. West. She said, there's no doubt about the change you made to yourself. But what got our attention, the reason why we're here today, is you didn't just change yourself inside this prison, Mr. West. You changed the entire prison around you. She said one man was able to change this prison. So my question for you is this, Mr. West, and think very hard about this answer because your life depends on it. If you could be remembered for being anything in life, anything at all, she said, tell me what that one thing would be, but give it to me in just one word. Go. I didn't have to think about the answer that day because I've been living that answer the whole time I was in prison working that program recovery, becoming that coffee bean. And I fired her answer back at her immediately and I said, useful. I said, I just want to be useful. And I got that word from my 12 steps, right? Because if I can be useful again, I can stay sober, I can help other people, I can enrich lives, I can grow my life. So I told her, I said, I just want to be useful because I think every human being wants to be useful. And I said, I just want to be, and I can be useful inside this prison or I can be useful in the free world again. And on November 16th, 2015, I walked out of a Texas prison. But that's not where the story ends because I'm not a free man. You're not looking at a free man in front of you. I got a little more time left on parole in Texas. I'm on parole until the year 2073. I got 48 more years from this recording to be on parole. Hey, at this recording, I'm 49, so I'm halfway there, right? That's kind of the way I look at it, right? I got this incredible outlook on life. I've got this get-to life. I get to be out of prison on parole. People ask me all the time, man, what's it like living on parole the rest of your life? I said, well, I mean, it's a one day at a time deal, but let me tell you what it's like living in a prison, right? Because I get to live outside of a prison. So I'm on parole for the rest of my life, but I'm not worried about being on parole because I'm a coffee bean. So the day I get out of prison, my parents are there waiting for me to party. And it's just like you see in the movies, man. They dress you out in some free world clothes. You got your few possessions in your hands, and the guards escort you out to the front gate, the big front gate that looked like it could never move the whole time you were there. It opens up. You step outside. The gate closes behind you, and it's left you on the outside of the prison. You're standing in the free world again. You're a free man. And it does something to you mentally. I'm like, I'm free. So I found my parents' car in the parking lot. I run to them. We're hugging. We're crying. It's very emotional. They throw me in the car, and they drive me home. And I say home because for the first 2 years I got out of prison, I lived in my parents' spare bedroom. And let me tell you something. I was grateful to have their spare bedroom because there's a lot of people that get out of prison. They don't have a place to go. They don't have a home. But let me really paint this picture for you. I'm 40 years old. I just got out of prison. I'm on parole for the rest of my life. I got a job making just above minimum wage, and I live in my parents' spare bedroom. Not exactly a good Tinder profile, is it? I went on the dating apps, not with that profile like that. Hey, but incidentally, my wife, who I'm married to today, we'll hear about that in a second. I met her during that time when I lived in my parents' spare bedroom, a woman named Kendall Romero. And Kendall was a nurse practitioner when I met her, and she would literally walk through my parents' spare bedroom, through my parents' living room, say hi to them to the spare bedroom in the back where I lived. So get out of prison the first day. The first thing I did when I got out of prison, the first meal I got, I went to Whataburger. Now, I don't know if anybody's ever had a Whataburger before, but the only thing that can compete with the Whataburger is In-N-Out Burger. They're pretty good, man. But I went and got a Whataburger that day, and then my parents drove me home. And then that night, I went to my first 12-step meeting in the free world. And I went to the home group where Ray was a member. Ray was the guy that brought the meeting into the prison. That's where I met Ray for the first time. He was the guy that brought AA into the prison. And I found Ray's home group in Beaumont, which is the town where I'm going to live in when I get out of prison. Same town where I did my time in. In fact, today I live 4 miles from the prison where I did my time. I just built a house by the prison. And so I go to that Ray's home group, the Keep It Simple group, that Monday when I get out, November 16, 2015, and his jaw drops. And he's like, you made it. I said, yeah, man, Ray, I told you I'd make it. Now, whenever I was in prison and Ray would bring the meeting in every Wednesday, I'd see him in prison. I'd tell him all the time, man, when I get out of prison, man, I'm going to find your home group and you're going to be my sponsor. And Ray would kind of laugh it off because Ray brings an AA meeting into a maximum security prison. He gets lied to more than the police get lied to. So Ray is like stunned. He's like, man, you made it. I said, I did, Ray. And I said, I need a sponsor. I don't want to go back. And I need to work these steps on the outside. And I need to work this program the rest of my life. He said, Damon, I'll be your sponsor. I'll be your sponsor if you keep 2 promises to me. One is that you will go to any lengths I tell you to stay sober. And 2, if you ever have a thought of drinking or doing drugs, you're going to call me first. He said, will you do those 2 things? I said, yeah, Ray. So we start having our sponsee meetings, and it's about a month after I got out of prison. He comes to a meeting one day. We're going to meet up, the sponsee meeting. And he walks in, and he takes one look at me. I'm miserable. And he looks at me. He said, man, I am so worried about you. I'm worried that you're about to go back to prison, Damon. And I'm like, man, that got my attention. I just got out of prison. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, look at you, man. You're miserable. I said, what do you want to do, Ray? I had this dream that I was going to go share my story, right? And I knew I was an incredible story with a great message, but I found out really quickly you couldn't go knock on the door of a high school and say, I just got out of prison. I want to talk to your kids. Man, they'll chase you down. They chased me on the street one time when I did that in Texas. And so I'm sitting there a month out. I'm like, Ray, nobody will allow me into anywhere because I'm an ex-con, man. No one wants ex-cons around. He said, now you're really going back to prison, Damon. You're stuck in self-pity. He said, when we get into self-pity, that's when we're going to put the chemicals in. We want to change the way we feel. We want to deaden that pain a little bit. I said, what do you want me to do, Ray? I said, I'm a man without a country, pretty much. I can't go anywhere. He said, that's not true. He said, what I want you to do is go to a senior citizen center, anywhere around this area where we live. Go to the front desk. He said, tell them what your crime was. They don't care about organized crime people like you. He said, they're not worried about crimes like you committed. You're a nonviolent guy. He said, go to the front desk at a senior citizen center. Go in there and ask them for a list of people that never get visitors anymore. He said, they're going to give you a list a mile long in that place. He said, I want you to spend this Saturday and Sunday visiting people that don't have visitors anymore. He said, you used to live in an institution. You will understand what institutional living is like when you walk inside this place. He said, you promised me you'd go to any lengths to stay sober. This is what I want you to do. So I did. I promised him. So I went that weekend, a month out of prison, and I went to a senior citizen center in Groves, Texas, and I asked them for a list of all the people that never get visitors, and they did. They gave me a big, long list. And I spent that weekend visiting people. Some of these old folks in there, some of these senior citizens in there, they hadn't had a visitor in 10 years, man. Imagine living in a place for 10 years, no one will just listen to you. And that really struck me because, I lived in prison. My parents came to see me over 150 times when I was in prison. My parents never let go of me. I was one of the lucky ones. I got a lot of visits in prison, and every visit was so special to me. But I saw prison break so many people down because it's the loneliest place in the world. They say prison's the only place you're never alone, but you're always lonely. You're surrounded by the wrong people, not the right people you're going to be surrounded with. And in those senior citizen centers, I saw a lot of that same thing. These people had been dropped off by their family members. And I spent that weekend, it must have been 8 hours a day, each day that weekend. I went back to the meeting on Monday. I was like, Ray, man, you're right. And he said, now you found your first service work project. This is how you're going to stay sober. Until the other speaking stuff takes off, that's how you're going to stay sober, Damon. And so that's what I did when I first got out of prison. I went to senior citizen centers, and I visited with senior citizens on the weekend, people that didn't get visitors. They started looking forward to me, and I found out some of these old folks are pretty good dominoes players too, man. You sit across from someone that's been playing dominoes for 80 years, they can tell you what you pull when you pull your hand. So that was my first service work project out of prison. And so there weren't a lot of places for me to speak when I first got out. But what there was, in my parents' spare bedroom where I lived, there was a little mirror in there, a little vanity mirror my mom had when I moved in. Every night for 2 years, I practiced my presentation in front of that mirror. I got in my reps. Anything you want to be good at in life, you got to practice that in life, because there's no such thing as an overnight success. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It's like a unicorn. It's not even real. If you want to be good at something, you got to get in the reps. You got to put in the work. So for 2 years, I'm practicing my presentation in front of that mirror. And my dream is to go speak to college football programs at the time. And I believe the world of college football is going to be where it happens for me, because I played Division I college football. But the problem is, it's been 20 years I took my first snap. These coaches don't know me, and I don't know them. January 11th, 2017. I've been out of prison for 14 months at this point. I got a job at a law firm. My job at my law firm where I work at after prison, I got this job. When I was in prison, I did my own legal work. I was trying to get myself out. There's kind of an axiom that people in prison want out. It's true. And I thought the courts were going to be the only way I could get out by turning my case over. And so the legal work I did for myself in prison got the attention of a lot of lawyers in Texas. And they wrote to me and said, if you ever get out of prison, come see us. We got a job for you. So my first job out of prison was paralegal for one of the most prestigious law firms in Texas. 14 months out, January 11th, 2017, I'm at work that day at the law firm, the Provost Humphrey Law Firm. I get a call. It's a buddy in Houston. Houston is 90 miles away. My buddy works for the media. His name is Mike Orta. Mike Orta says, hey, Damon, get to Houston right now. It's the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award. They're going to name the best college football coach in America. He said the 8 best coaches in the country are in this room right now. I got an extra press pass. I'll sneak you in. So, man, I go. This could be my shot, right? I drive the 90 miles from Beaumont to Houston. He sneaks me to the back door of Toyota Center. He hands me a press pass. He said, you're on your own, man. I got to go to work. So there I am in this room. And all these coaches there, USC, Wisconsin, Penn State, PJ Fleck, they're all in that room. And I go up to these coaches and I shake their hand and I give them my pitch of why they should bring me in to talk to their team. And every coach I meet that night slams a door in my face. They all said no. Every one of them's telling me no, one after another. In 1 hour, I got 7 no's from 8 coaches. That's a no every 8 minutes. I'm standing in the corner of Toyota Center now. I'm licking my wounds. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I'm 10 feet from the door, getting ready to walk out and leave because the voice in my head is telling me, go home. The voice in my head is screaming at me, you don't belong in this room. You never belong in this room. Why did you come tonight? The voice in my head called me an imposter. And I know everybody listening to this, you've heard that imposter voice before, at least once in your life. But I'm going to tell you what I quit doing a long time ago, listening to myself. And here's why I stopped listening to myself a long time ago, because sometimes that voice in my head is fear talking to me, and I couldn't determine whether it was fear or not. And let me tell you something. You don't want to listen to fear because fear's a liar. So instead of listening to myself, I talk to myself. And that's what I was doing that night. I'm pumping myself up in the corner of Toyota Center, and I'm telling myself, Damon, man, that last coach is going to tell you no to your face before you go home. And man, the last coach, he's the hardest guy to get to in the room. His team had just beat Alabama for the national championship 2 nights before. Everybody is in line to talk to this guy. They all want their picture with this guy. But I reminded myself, Damon, you survived prison, a maximum secure level 5 prison, man. This isn't going to hurt like prison. Sometimes in life, we need to remind ourselves of the times when we succeeded. Remember the victories that you had. Focus on those. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive, right? And that's what I'm doing that night. I'm pumping myself back up. And that night, I stalked Dabo Swinney around this room, the head coach of Clemson. And I look like a crazy person at this point, man. I'm possessed, man. I'm hiding behind fake plants. I'm pushing people out of the way. Dabo sees me, and security has seen me too. Who's going to get there first, right? And so I do. I get in front of Dabo, and I give him my pitch, and I come up for air, and Dabo looks taken back. He's like, man, you got a card on you? I'm like, oh, man, I've seen that look before. I gave him my card. He took it from me. He said, I'll check you out, and he was going, nice enough guy, but I saw that look before that night. That's a no. But I'm going to tell you what I felt good about that night. That final no. You know what that no represented for me? Leaving it all on the field. One of the biggest takeaways I got from my lifetime of sports is you give it your all. And sometimes you may come up short. Or like Muhammad said, you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. I fought my fights that night. I went home and slept like a baby. I forgot about that night. 4 months later, I get an email out of the blue. It's the director of football operations at Clemson University, a guy named Mike Dooley. Mike Dooley's email says this. Hey, Damon, Coach Swinney met you at the award show in Houston. He'd love to have you come talk to the team. Do you have August 1st open? I'm like, brother, I got every first open, man. I got nothing going on. I'm talking to a mirror at that point, right? So August 1st, 2017, I go speak to the Clemson Tigers, defending national champions of college football. And when I get done my presentation night, Dabo's in my face now. And Dabo's a high energy guy. Damon, that's the most amazing story I've ever heard. I've never seen my players respond like that to a speaker. He said, have you been to Alabama to talk to their football team? And I'm like, no. I've been to Clemson, man. I hadn't been. What do you mean Alabama? Alabama doesn't know who I am. He said, we're going to see about that. He said, I just texted Nick Saban from the back of the room, told him I was watching. The next day, when my flight lands in Houston for my trip to Clemson, I turn my phone on. There's a voicemail and a text message from the director of football operations at the University of Alabama, the Well. The biggest program in America with the best coach to ever do it. Here's what the message said. Hey, Damon, Dabo called Coach Saban last night. Coach Saban can't wait to hear your story. He said, how does August 21st, 7:30 p.m. work for your calendar? Man, I laughed out loud because I didn't even have a calendar at the time. I didn't need a calendar. Just like that, y'all. Dabo Swinney kicked open the biggest order of college football. And Dabo didn't stop there. Kirby Smart calls, Lincoln Riley, Chip Kelly, Lane Kiffin, Ryan Day. Every coach in America starts calling my phone. When are you coming to talk to my team? The dream is real. It's happening. But the biggest event hadn't happened yet. I hadn't met this other servant leader I would run into. So it was August of 2018, 1 year after that first presentation at Clemson. I get a phone call out of the blue. On the other end of my phone is this guy named John Gordon. Now, John Gordon is one of the biggest motivational speakers and authors in America. This is the energy bus guy. And I'm like, John, I know who you are. How do you know who I am? He said, Dabo Swinney. He said, Damon, I just got done speaking at Clemson. Dabo brought me to the office for 30 minutes to tell me your whole story. And John said this before the pandemic. John said, Damon, The world needs a coffee bean message right now. Let's deliver this message to the world. He said, will you write a book with me? We'll call it The Coffee Bean. In the summer of 2019, exactly 10 years after I first heard that story from Muhammad in the jail cell in Dallas County, the book, The Coffee Bean, comes out, takes the world by storm, the whole planet. Starts off in America first, right? 4 to 6 weeks, it rides high at the top of every bestseller list, gets a global publishing deal attached to it. Global publishing deals are rare. That's when they reprint your book in every language of the world. The book starts to pop up in Chinese and Spanish and Arabic, French, Italian, German, Vietnamese, Korean, just in time for the year 2020. Remember what happened in 2020? A global pandemic hit. The entire world becomes this pot of boiling water, and the entire world is searching for the right message, and that's when the whole world discovered the Coffee Bean guy. My life went from this to this, and it hadn't stopped yet. Since the year 2021, I've been on the road speaking to corporations, sports teams, groups, associations. I've been on the road 20 to 25 days of every month sharing the Coffee Bean somewhere on the planet, but it all goes back to one night in Houston, Texas. Remember January 11th, 2017? That night I had 7 no's in the first hour. Remember, I'm 10 feet from the door. I'm about to walk out and leave because the voice in my head told me to go home. I didn't belong there. And if I listened to the voice of fear and doubt that night, we're not having this conversation today, and the world doesn't have the Coffee Bean message. So what I always want everybody to know is this: you don't quit because life gets tough. You don't throw the towel in because it gets hard. You don't not ask your questions in life. The only question you know the answer to in life, that you truly know the answer to in life, is the question you do not ask. The answer is no to that question every time because you never ask your question. I mean, Wayne Gretzky actually said it best. He said you miss 100% of shots you do not take. You got to take your shots in this life.
Excellent talk. Thank you, Damon.
When I was designing the first Soft-White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft-White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft-White Underbelly is all about, and these 2 books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.